Hello, Blazers. Welcome to episode 134 of UAB Green and Told, original release Monday, October 7th, 2024. This podcast gives us a chance to share stories from members of the UAB community. Listen to previous episodes of Green and Told, the campus's most downloaded podcast, at alumni.uab.edu/Green and Told on Spotify or the Apple Podcast app. While there, I'd like to encourage you to leave a written review to help more alums find us. I'm Greg Berry, a UAB alum and Director of Communications in the Office of Alumni Affairs. Samuel Beckett once said, "Ever tried, ever failed. No matter, try again, fail better." Or maybe this quote from William Edward Hickson is a bit easier to digest. If at first you don't succeed, try again. The point is, if we don't try, success will be more challenging to attain. Today's podcast guest, Linda Coogan, will tell you that she can't never try, something that was instilled in her by her dad.
And he told me, you can do and be anything you want to if you want it bad enough to put the effort into it. And I was like, wow, that is so true. That is so true.
And she wanted it badly. Through hard work, Linda would find career success, only to be dealt with one of the most unthinkable tragedies a mother can face.
Joshua was murdered with a single gunshot wound to his head as he lay sleeping.
Left searching for answers and in sorrow, nobody could have blamed her if she'd sunk into darkness. But as she'll share, she took an alternate path.
It would have been so easy, like you said, to go down that road of bitterness. I've seen people who became so bitter that it just reeked from their skin.
It's a story not too unfamiliar to many listeners. Growing up in a family void of college graduates. For Linda Coogan, that was her childhood. The daughter of a Birmingham police officer and stay-at-home mom on the West End, it's not to say that an emphasis wasn't placed on her family's education. As we'll learn, it was. However, it was at times elusive.
I come from a family that we didn't have much money. There were 7 of us kids. I was the first person in my family to graduate high school, much less go to college. And I'm talking my mother's side of the family and my father's side of the family. We just had this perception that we couldn't go to college. We didn't have enough money, all the things that were there. But my dad, he really encouraged me through so much. He was the kind of father that was like, if I brought home a B, I was in trouble. But like my older brothers and sisters, they were praised if they made a C. And I was like, this is not fair. This is not right. But my dad always said, I know that you can do better. And I expect more from you because I know that you can do better. And he had this hope that I would be the first one to go to college. And with growing up through all the things that we grew up through, the adversity, and I was scared when they bused the kids to our schools. We had to go and cross picket lines. My mom had to walk us to school and cross picket lines in the mornings. We loved everyone around us and grew to have some beautiful relationships. When I was 18, I got married. I actually went to Inslee High School. I was in my senior year, and my dad looked at me and he said, "Oh, I had such high hopes for you, and you're not going to finish high school either." And I looked at my dad and I said, not only will I finish high school, I'll finish high school with honors. And I'm going to go on to college. I wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't think that I could do that because of my background and where I was from. That was not a possibility for me. The next month, I was tapped into the National Honor Society. I did graduate high school with honors. Then my husband, who's the father of my children, he discovered a couple years after we were married that he had juvenile onset diabetes. And I wanted so much to learn about how the body worked and why that happened, I applied to go to college at that time. I had not immediately went back to school. I was going to go to maybe go get my LPN and go to or go get my associate degree. And I had one of my counselors from high school said, no, you can do so much more than that. You apply at UAB and I'll bet you get in, that you will be able to go there. And I was like, I won't ever get into UAB.
You had a completely different experience at UAB than most undergrads. Most undergrads aren't getting married at 18 years old and then ultimately going in as young married students. What was it like for you? Was it, in your experience, just normal?
I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything because it was a different campus atmosphere at that time. It was more set for working professionals. And it was amazing. It was a wonderful experience. I had amazing teachers, and then getting into the School of Nursing and being able to go do my clinicals at UAB and the VA and Cooper Green Hospital. I think it's now Mercy Hospital. And those were, like, to me, I was in awe because I was able to learn from the best at the best medical centers I felt in the nation. It was, it was a great experience.
What were you hoping to do when you graduated? What kind of nurse did you want to be? Did you have a specific direction that you were targeting?
Yeah, I wanted to be a pediatric nurse. However, when I did my pediatric clinicals, I saw babies die. I was like, I can't do this. I can't, that's not my field. So I just was like, I'm going to go into general practice and I'm going to work in the doctor's office. I was thinking that as well. I'm going to help people who have things like diabetes and things like that. Because at the same time, I'm learning and helping my husband, who was a brittle diabetic, and it ultimately had an impact on his life. He died from a car accident, and but he lost his leg and had a lot of issues from the diabetes. I wanted to be the nurse in the doctor's office, because we had, at the time, you had one doctor. When I was growing up in West End, Dr. Brown was at the end of the street, and he had one nurse that everybody knew. She was the nurse that gave you all your shots, that did everything with the family. And I wanted to be like her. I wanted to do that. And when I graduated, I had the honor of being chosen. There were 12 of us chosen to go into this new program. They were starting a study, a cardiac study, where they were going to be putting, not only doing caths, but putting stents into the heart. They trained us in cardiovascular nursing, and I went straight from graduating to the critical care unit, intensive care, cardiac intensive care, and learned and got to work with Dr. Kirkland. And it was a beautiful experience. I was so proud to have been chosen and to have been able to be a part of that group of folks starting out and in the cardiac field.
As a kid who grew up on Birmingham's West End, to a family that the parents didn't go to college, nobody in the family had, did you ever think you'd be able to have that experience?
No, I did not think that was a possibility for me. That was the first time in my life that I was like, wow, I can do this. And my dad used to always say, I can't, never tried. And he told me, you can do and be anything you want to if you want it bad enough to put the effort into it. And I was like, wow, that is so true. That is so true. Yeah. When I graduated, we had been married for about 9 years, and we had been trying to have children and went through infertility clinics. There was a fertility specialist that my husband had gotten to know, a physician there, because he was a maintenance mechanic at UAB, and he was like, we need to go see this doctor, and he can help us to get pregnant. And we finally, after years of struggling and trying, I had an ectopic pregnancy pretty soon after we got married, and my tubes had been scarred. So he went in and cleaned everything out, and a month later we were pregnant with Matthew. So when Matthew was born, I named him Matthew because that means a gift from God, and he was such a gift from God. And then 2 years later, Joshua came along with no problem. And I named him Joshua because that means the chosen one. And I wanted him to know that I wanted him just as much as I wanted Matthew. He was chosen too. And when I had Joshua, our placenta ruptured. And both he and I almost lost our life during that. But thankfully, I was staying with my sister and when my placenta ruptured, so I was there close to UAB and able to go in and have emergency surgery. But I told Joshua from the time he was born that God had a special purpose for both of us in our lives, and we were going to make a big difference in the world. And for the entirety of both of my boys' lives, we had said that. And then I went to work. I got an opportunity to be the performance improvement director at what was then Medical Center East.
Yep.
And I took that job. I actually, in Baptist, had gotten promoted to a leader in the cardiovascular unit service line with all of the Baptist hospitals at that time. They had several hospitals at that time. But I had the opportunity to go to work at Medical Center East. And my boss, who was the COO, Jeremy Scripture, he said to me, he said, UAB has a program in their healthcare administration, and you could go through this program while you're working. It's called the executive program, and get your master's in healthcare administration. And so he recommended me for it, and I went through and I got it. I graduated from nursing school in 1986. I got my master's in 2006, 20 years later. Mm-hmm. And right now I'm applying to get my doctorate in whole health medicine. And if I do that, every 20 years I get another degree, and I'll be 65 years old. But I'm not going to say if. When I do that, I will have achieved getting that doctorate that I wanted when I was really younger. So that's huge for me to think about. And I got a job at the Joint Commission not long after getting my master's in healthcare administration. And I was a Joint Commission surveyor. That was in 2012 when my husband and I were I was surveying a hospital in New York, and my husband had never been to New York. And so we went up early on the weekend to go to New York. And Matthew he was still in college at the University of Alabama. My two boys, I was like, you will go to college. So Matthew was still in college. I had married my now husband, Danny. His son was in college at the University of Alabama, and Joshua had just gotten out. He was 22 years old. Joshua had stayed at home because he had just started his first job, and Matthew was out of town and taking his cousin to California. She was moving to California, and he was driving her out there. And so Josh was staying at home by himself, and he had a couple of friends to spend the night. And on September the 9th, 2012, my home was broken into, and all 3 young men that were in my home were murdered. And my home was robbed, and Joshua was murdered with a single gunshot wound to his head as he lay sleeping.
Wow.
The news media made it about a drug deal gone bad. There were 0 drugs in Joshua's system. He had had a bit too much to drink, but there were no drugs in his system, and he had nothing to do with any kind of drug deal. Casey was a friend of his. He was also 22. He was asleep upstairs, and Simeon was a friend of Joshua's as well. So, Simeon had bought a bag of pot from the guy that murdered them. That's what turned it all into this drug deal gone bad. But it totally changed the perception of the community of what had happened. And at that time, I said, because the DA told me, he said, you can't speak to the media or say anything about this, because anything you say can and will be used in defense of the guy that did this. They're going to take your words and they're going to twist them and they're going to use them. And I didn't want to have anything to do with the media anyway. My home was a crime scene. My son's body was evidence. And I had these wonderful, amazing friends that we went and stayed in their house. The media hounded my family until they got me in front of the camera. And so I went to a candlelight vigil that they were having, and I told them, I won't say anything about this. And the first thing, I'll never forget, the first thing the lady asked me was, what do you think about the guy that did this? And because of my training in healthcare, and we would have disaster training and how to address the media and that sort of thing, I thank God that I had that training, because I was able to look at her and say, I am not doing this interview with you if you're going to ask me that kind of question, and not react the way that she wanted me to. And then she asked me what I did want to say. And I said, I just want to thank everybody for their prayers, because that's what's holding us up right now. The guy who did this, he was found guilty of 5 counts of capital murder. 2 years later, he would have gotten the death penalty. We agreed to life without parole if he gave up all rights to appeal. And I knew that people who got the death penalty, their entire case, and I knew this guy's case was being built on appeals. So the fact that they gave up all rights to appeals was a blessing. I actually said, thank God. And so we agreed to that. And I was able, at the trial, to turn to the mother of the young man who murdered my son and the other 2 boys, and tell her thank you for doing the right thing, because she actually turned her son in. And she turned to me and said, thank you for sparing my son's life. And we embraced. And that was beautiful. That was beautiful. And Matthew and I said, what can we do to keep this from happening? And in my healthcare quality training and all, I had learned that you would get to the root cause. And the best way to address something is to not look at the person, look at the process, get to the root cause.
Sure.
And address the root cause. And Matthew had been in education, and he learned about social and emotional learning. And He had been through several social justice programs. He was a gay man, and very proud of him and the way that he stood up for so much for the LGBTQ community. So we started looking at social and emotional learning, and we formed ACE, Aliquot Collaborative for Education. At that time, our goal was to bring social and emotional learning to Alabama, to the schools in Alabama. I had worked at Children's Hospital during the time of going through the trial and that sort of thing. We became the first nonprofit to receive the DIRTH Award twice. We went into the Fairfield City Schools, and we were able to impact so many people. I took money out of my retirement to get it going. We didn't have anything to get started. And I started Aliquot Center for Performance Excellence, which is my for-profit business. I had started that right before Josh was murdered because people were asking me to do consulting with them.
With such a tragedy that rocked your world with Josh's death, a lot of people would just kind of bring it back in. They wouldn't really do anything. They'd let it fester, but you didn't. You and Matthew ran with it. Was it ever a notion to say, you know what, it's not worth it. I just lost a 22-year-old. I don't want to move forward?
It's every day I have to make the decision to get up and go forward. Yes, all of that crossed my mind. However, I have something within me that the thing that made me say to my father, no, I am not only going to graduate, I'm going to keep going forward. You know how a pearl is made? A grain of sand gets in the oyster shell, and it's an irritation. It's painful for the oyster. So the oyster could just live with that and complain and probably die from that pain. But instead, it excretes this nacre, which surrounds the grain of sand and smooths it out so that the oyster can then tolerate it, and it makes something beautiful from that. Matthew and I went through so much, and we went through anger management and all of these for years. I've been in and out of counselor's office for the majority of my life. Yes, there have been so many times, and it's still a choice every day to get up and go and make something beautiful from what has been handed to me in life. I was consulting with a hospital out in Tacoma, Washington, and Matthew was running ACE, and one day he sent me a letter that a sixth grade girl wrote, and it said that she thought that her life was not of any value, and that after going through our program, that she knew that she could do and be anything she wanted to. And she was thanking us for that. And I started crying, and I was like, that's worth every penny that we've put into this, all the effort that we've done, that one letter. When I got home, my desk was full of letters from kids.
Wow.
About the impact. We knew that this was what we needed to do and how we were going to make that difference that Joshua wanted to make in everybody's life. We were helping him to do that. We were doing that as well. I actually had gone to an alumni event at the School of Nursing, and the speaker was Barbara Dossie, who is a Nightingale Scholar. And she and Susan Luck, who was a nutritionist, she actually passed away a couple years ago, that Barbara Dossie was speaking about integrative nurse coaching, which was a new program that they had put together, integrating holistic and complementary medicine and having registered nurses trained to coach on health style practices and help others to a more preventative lifestyle practice, getting to the root cause of what's going on. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. And so I went through that training and I became a certified integrative nurse coach. So with my healthcare administration, I went on and became a fellow. I'm a fellow in the American College of Healthcare Executives. With my nurse coaching, I went on and got certified with the American Nursing Credentialing Association with that. And I also learned Tai Chi, became a Tai Chi instructor and other healthcare practices. And then I became in my training, trying to learn more things that were available out there for us to give our youth to help prevent the root cause of all this violence. I learned, and we learned and went through, Matthew went with me to the John Maxwell program. They had a Youth Max program, and they have a program that they're doing with life skills, training, and that sort of thing. So going through all of this, I became a John Maxwell certified speaker, trainer, coach. The test for integrative nurse coaching, about 35% of it is self-care. And in lifestyle medicine, it's self-care. And in order to take care of others, you have to first take care of yourself. You know, like on the airplane, when they tell you you have to put the oxygen on yourself first.
Yep.
As healthcare workers, before we can take care of others, and I've given this to teachers as well, you know, anybody that's serving and taking care of others, parents, we have to take care of ourselves first. After Joshua was murdered, I became very ill. I was in and out of the hospital. I was on like 14 different medications.
Wow.
I could hardly walk down the hallway at Children's without getting out of breath, but I was still able to be a very productive leader in Children's while doing all that. Yet it was through these practices of learning to calm down, to manage your stress, to not say all these ugly things to yourself all the time, and focusing on the positive.
Sure.
That I today only take my thyroid pill, nothing else. And my cardiac doctor fired me because he said, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it because you are in amazing health. And it's all doing these lifestyle practices and getting to the root cause of what was causing all of this illness. You know, and you know, stress can kill you. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that adversities, you know, adverse childhood experiences and intergenerational trauma are a direct impact on chronic illness and autoimmune diseases. So 2 years ago, Matthew was in a car accident and he lost his life. It would have been so easy, like you said, to go down that road of bitterness. I've seen people who became so bitter that it just reeked from their skin. And that would have been the easy thing to do. However, I am able to find peace when I remember that I didn't think I could have children. God gave me 2 amazing young men. Both of those boys had a positive impact on this earth. When I remember how amazing those boys were, and I didn't think I could have children, and God blessed me with 22 years of life with Joshua and 33 years with Matthew, I am at peace. I'm taken to another place. And I'm so thankful that I had that opportunity to have those boys in my life.
That's two-time UAB alumna Linda Coogan. In 1986, she graduated with her Bachelor of Science from the School of Nursing, followed a decade later by her Master's of Art in Healthcare Administration from the School of Health Professions. As an alum with multiple degrees, she has a good idea of what it means to be a Blazer.
It is the ability to learn and be among the great minds of the world. Like I said, I was able to work with, Dr. Kirkland and a lot of the leaders in healthcare, and the School of Health Professions is the Master's in Healthcare Administration is now #1 in the nation. And it's being a part of like-minded individuals who we all want to go out there and make a better place, and being able to work be among this group of people who are making a big, huge, positive difference in the world.
Be sure to check out past episodes of the UAB Green and Told podcast. Listen in at alumni.uab.edu/greenandtold. Have a story to share or know someone who does? Email greenandtold@uab.edu. Finally, be sure to follow us on social media. Just search UAB Alumni on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for listening, and until next time, go Blazers.